It brings back a lot of memories of what transpired for us over in Vietnam. You think about the guys that, for me especially, one guy who was killed in our platoon, the injuries and all the other stuff that you saw over there. It's just an amazing experience. You just never ever forget it, and you can't forget it. I mean, the helicopters fly around where everyone's nerves are on end. It just stays with you. Both Phil and I were only in for 2 years. We're both national servicemen, but it's forever with you. You probably think about it every day.
Gary, how old were you when you went over?
21. Like all of us were 21. We were drafted at 20. In our situation, we were drafted at 20, and at 21 we were over there.
Phil, I believe that your grandfather, was it, also served?
Yeah, he was a light horse brigade, and he was a farmer, and he sort of volunteered to go in. He was 21, and he actually served in 2 different sort of regiments. He went in as a light horse, and then he joined the Air Force, and he got wounded somehow in the Air Force somewhere along the line, and in the foot and in the neck. So then he was transported back home again. But the ship that he actually went over to Gallipoli, as soon as all the horses and that got off, the ship was blown up. So he was lucky he just got away with that. So.
Lucky to even make it there.
Make it there and get home, yeah.
And what year was that?
That was 1914, 15, yeah.
So was he one of the first over?
No, he was probably about, 10th, 11th. Probably group that went over, I suppose. So there were other troops there before him. So.
And how long was he there for?
He would have been there for about 8, 9 months, I suppose. So it's quite a long time. So they do move them around. I've read the book on Gallipoli, and they did move troops around a fair bit, trying to fend off or get into different enemy territory and stuff like that. So.
And what are your memories of your grandfather?
Memories of my grandfather was when he came home, he went back onto the land, and he had quite a few horses and things like that, so did a bit of droving in the off times. But I used to just enjoy going down to their place and listen to a few little stories, but not a lot on wartime, but just on growing up and things that they did as kids, and pinching some grapes off the vines and stuff like that.
Where was the farm?
The farm wasn't far out of where we lived, but a little place called Hillston. The farm was called Narradin, and it was quite good country, sandy country on the river, and had quite a few acres there. So we used to often ride out there and back home again on the bikes, or often walk sometimes. So it was good times. He died quite young, really. I think he was 70 something. So. Yeah.
So later on in life, did he ever speak much about his experience in the war?
No, not even my father, who was in the Second World War. You sort of ask the question, but nothing's ever comes forward. They just sort of clam up. They just said, "Well, it's a hard time." It was a hard time. So because there's a lot of mates and that were, of course, killed, and they passed away through disease and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's a lot of memories that they have got to hold up. I mean, some people get over it, some people don't. So, yeah.
So, Phil, you're in quite an unusual position then, are you, that both your grandfather, your father and yourself served?
Yeah.
When you went to Vietnam, what were your first impressions of landing in, I guess, what was then a foreign land?
Well, for me it was, it was a bit of excitement and probably looking forward to a bit of adventure at first. But your body and mind, you're just in a different zone. You often think, what am I doing here, and where am I going? So you get there anyway. But the first 2 weeks for me was totally alien to me. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't relax and things like that. So, and then you go out and on ops in the jungle and stuff like that, fire support bases and things like that. So, and you just go along with it. I never asked too many questions about why am I here, why are we supporting the Americans and things like that. So it was just something you had to do. I never even thought about being a conscientious objector, which a lot of people did, I think, but the consequences of that is, okay, you've got to do time and whatever, community work and stuff like that. So.
No. Our era grew up really on comic book stories about the war. We had Korea, the ANZACS, were Second World War veterans on ANZAC Day were lauded, and when the opportunity came for us to be drafted, we went in waving the flag. And because we were the first, I was involved in the first intake. The politics of it hadn't really hit then, but it certainly did by the time we got home. And then all of a sudden, you know, the Vietnam veteran was persona non grata. No one wanted to know us. In fact, the first party that I went to, we hadn't, you know, all we did, the guy, the mate of mine and myself, we just walked backwards and forwards to the keg because we actually didn't know how to speak to round-eyed girls. And that's probably a story that happened regularly throughout it all. It was not in real existence, you know. Vietnam just is with you all for the rest of your life. You can't change those things. And this is what this is all about. What we're trying to convey to the public is that the ANZACs, they are magnificent people. They did a wonderful job. But also, the Vietnam veteran has done Australia proud too. From the First World War, I understand that the Vietnam veteran had the most deaths, the third most deaths of any conflict that Australia's been involved in. People aren't aware of a lot of that stuff. And because it's the 50th anniversary of the first battle group going to Vietnam, we don't know what the government's going to do, but we just don't want the public to forget that. I just think it's so important. And like Phil has said, the military really is a family history of Australia. We've called an event that we're trying to organise the Sons of ANZACS Memorial Tour in Vietnam. The story is out there, and we just want to make sure that people understand that it's not all about ANZAC. They're dead, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful at all, because we absolutely honour them, but we have to laud a lot of the guys that are living, because they're crippled in mind, and a lot of them have got crippling in bodies too, and it has to be understood that they're respected as well, because they certainly weren't given that respect when they got home.
You're doing this tour in 2015 for the 100-year celebration. Why are you getting started on it now?
By putting it out now early enough, they can understand, they can come on board, they can save money if they want to go on the tour to go. They can say, no, we don't want to go. They can be part of it if they want to be. But at least we're giving them the option of going. And every promotion or everything that we do, Legacy will be the winner of that. We'll be donating money to Legacy on behalf of that. So that's what it's all about. It's really to make people aware. But if you could imagine yourself with your grandfather standing on a battlefield where your grandfather walked, holding hands, and the majority of us would probably end up tearing up a little bit. It'd be a wonderful, wonderful experience for the family. You know, just as an example, we've got heroes here on this coast that people don't realise. We've got Long Tan. We talk about Long Tan as being it was a major battle. There's no doubt about that. You got a bloke on the coast by the name of Bob Buick. Now, he doesn't know I'm going to say this, and he probably hit me over the head for saying it. But anyone that is in a situation that they're in, who calls artillery onto his own position to stop being overrun, that is, am I allowed to say a great Australian accent? That's bloody brave. That really is brave. And those stories, that sort of stuff is not out there. I mean, people just don't understand how tough that would have been. I walked, this is just an aside, I walked through that battlefield 6 months after. If you imagine a rubber tree at the point of every square, and you're looking on a flat oval, as far as you can see, that's how rubber trees are planted. But when we walked through that, this was maybe 6 months later, every tree was either damaged or blown over. We'd walk through, and the rib cages would be there, thigh bones, red Chinese or Chinese water bottles. Even that plays on your memory. To be there, would have been a nightmare.
What are you expecting to find when you head back in 2015?
Well, for me, a lot of it will be changed, of course, and I imagine there'll be maps of reference that you could go, yeah, okay, that was there, this was there. There probably would be some landmarks that I'll be able to identify. But yeah, I mean, it'll bring back some memories, of course, yeah, in different areas. I won't get to the areas where I was, because I walked a lot of that jungle around the place. But I think it'll be good. And emotions run high when you're with a group of people who have different experiences, some worse than others, and it just overflows. You can imagine yourself when you go to a funeral, you steel yourself, but there's always that one person or two persons that overwhelm you with their sadness, and that's how it's going to be.
Because your grandfather, as well as your father, served, and yourself, who will you take with you to Vietnam when you return in 2015?
Well, I'm hoping my wife will come with me, and probably I've got 3 sons, so maybe because they're working, maybe get one of them to come along and just say, well, yeah, this is what it's all about. So we need to keep this sort of thing going, because if we don't, in the years ahead, ANZACS will just maybe peel away. So it's good to get the schools involved, get the kids recognising that yeah, my father, my grandfather had been there, and so on. So
It's about the family of the military from generation to generation have fought for this country, and it's not about ANZACS. You join the military, you put the uniform on, there is an expectation that you may die. And that's why veterans should be given the recognition that they deserve. It is so important that the Vietnam veteran makes a statement, and the best statement that I think that we could make is to hold a memorial tour back in Vietnam. And if you think about it, we would be the only Western nation that would be able to go over there and hold a memorial service, a commemoration service for our troops at the Long Tan Cross. That's significant.